Our first story is called Nosy Neighbor Keeps Calling the City and Police on Me and Now is Trying to Have My Dog Taken Away. OP gives us updates and more info in the comments. I, 22 female, and my partner, 24 male, purchased our first home January 2022, and we absolutely love the neighborhood and our direct neighbors right next door. We're the youngest couple in the area, with most of the people being older and retired. We also have no kids, only a 2-year-old Siberian Husky who is my baby. The problems began as soon as we moved in, with complaints piling in first about our lawn. The house was abandoned before we purchased it, and then there was a noise complaint about our dog. For a husky, she barely makes any noise, so I was surprised about the complaint, but I just let it go. About 9 months into living at the home, my partner purchased me an antique car which needed some work done before it could be driven. It was parked far into our long driveway, not yet tagged because we had just purchased it, and one tire was off to be fixed. The very next day, we got a nasty letter on our door from the city about an inoperable vehicle on our property that must be removed. We found this very strange, and after speaking with the inspector, who simply told us to move the car, we found out that there is a person in the neighborhood who keeps reporting us but remains anonymous. I got close with my closest neighbors and tried to ask them for advice on what to do. They both said that the most likely person to be reporting us is the neighbor that's across from us. An old lady and her husband who live with their blinds wide open just looking outside 24/7. Their daughter, a Karen in the making, drives around the neighborhood looking for people to report. My partner and I just happened to become the latest victims, and she apparently really hates us. So I decided to, just be nice to her and kill it with kindness. Oh, big mistake. So about 2 months ago, I fixed up my motorcycle and decided to take it out for a ride to enjoy the warm weather. While it idled in my driveway to warm up while I geared up, I saw the daughter come by with her kid to my neighbors across the street. The child seemed very interested in the bike, so I gave a little wave and I hopped on the machine to ride off. I enjoyed the ride, and when I returned, I parked the bike in the driveway to do some basic maintenance. A police officer then rolled up to my house. He claimed that there was a complaint out about me riding recklessly, doing wheelies and burnouts, and being a danger to the neighborhood. I was completely floored, and I tried to plead my case that I just went for a ride, and I didn't even stay in the neighborhood. He let me off with the warning, and as he drove away, I noticed my neighbor standing in the window, staring at me. From that point on, I decided to mind my own business and not to act friendly to them. Fast forward to this past month. My partner and I had to travel to New York for my family, and we decided to take our dog with us. We had a wonderful time, and when we got back to our home, we only had 4 days to wash clothes and repack before heading off to California for more family time. Within those 4 days, my partner worked days and I worked nights, so our dog was never left alone. Trust me, this becomes important. 3 days ago, I dropped my dog off with a trusted friend whose dog always plays with mine. I paid her $800 to watch my dog at her house for 2 weeks. My home is empty at this point, and I fly to California to enjoy a relaxing vacation. I get video and photo updates of my dog playing and having a blast staying with my friend. This morning, I get a text message from one of my good neighbors saying animal control stopped by my house and she asked me if my dog was okay. I was extremely confused because I just gotten a photo of my dog cuddled up on my friend's couch. I decided to call the city and see what was up. The city told me that there were multiple reports against me for neglect, abuse, and improper care of my dog, and that a full investigation was going to be conducted against me. I was at a loss for words. I'm across the country right now, and this neighbor has stepped too far now, trying to take my very spoiled and very well cared for dog away from me. All of my friends and my next door neighbors can vouch for just how loved that dog is. So now I'm waiting to hear back from animal control to explain my case. I have no idea what is going to happen next, if they will take my dog or inspect my house or what. I am exhausted and I'm tired of the harassment by this neighbor. I'm hesitant to get pregnant out of fear that this neighbor would call CPS on me. I feel watched and unwelcome and not quite sure what to do. Any advice from those who have been through something similar is very appreciated. Is there anything legally I can do to make it stop? Comments are saying it's harassment to get a lawyer and also to get cameras, and OP replies, I let them know, being animal control, they are meeting with my friend tonight to see my dog in person. I also gave animal control my vet's contact information. She just had an appointment recently. According to my other neighbors, they've been in this neighborhood for generations and they do this to everyone. They don't like me because we are a young couple and we bought the house instead of renting. They sent an email and did a phone call to animal control. I'm requesting FOIA to read the email complaint. When I spoke with animal control, they said she claimed my dog was starving and locked inside with no food, water, or bathroom breaks. And yeah, I've reported abused animals in my area before and they haven't even done a welfare check. I'm just guessing she must have someone that she knows with the city or something. Or it may be for the husky that lives down the street and I'm the one being blamed? I live in the South and this other dog that isn't mine is left outside 24/7 with no food or shelter. But yet, my spoiled dog who lives inside and isn't even there right now is being reported. That's crazy. I hope you can take some legal action against these crazy people, OP. My Army shot records aren't good enough? Cool, here's my whole VA file. Alright, fellow appreciators of absurdity and pettiness, here's a satisfying medium-length read to get you that much closer to the weekend as you grind away at the hamster wheel that is the American work week. So, I recently transitioned from active duty Army to the National Guard, which, as my fellow former service members know, comes with a metric buttload of paperwork and medical records. This will be relevant later. So, I got out last December, got accepted to grad school in February, and just started class a few weeks ago. As you all know, there is some sort of pandemic virusy thing going on, and many institutions require a vaccine to attend in-person classes, which the program I am enrolled in falls under. Like a good little boy, I got my vaccine as soon as I could last March, posted the obligatory nobody gives a crap picture of my vaccine card, and then moved on with my life. Fast forward to June, and I am hopping through the endless admin hoops of going back to school, and of course, submitting immunization records is on the to-do list. Since I got my shot through the National Guard, they actually already had the box checked for the pandemic vaccine. Cool. Maybe that's because I am attending a public university in the state I'm in the Guard for, so maybe they share a medical database? I don't know, it doesn't matter. And for those of you who cry HIPAA, newsflash, when you join the military, you give a few things up, get stuff in return, blah blah, that's not what the story is about. Although I don't think that a pandemic shot can do anything to me that anthrax, typhoid, and smallpox shots, 3 pinched nerves, and 5 years of running on pure hate and caffeine hasn't done to me already. But hey, I'm still kicking. On to the malicious compliance part. Now, to submit the rest of my immunization shot records, I have to upload a PDF into the school's medical portal. So, I go through the shot record in my medical outprocessing packet, snip the page so it's just the immunizations, thinking no need to include extraneous military stuff that may confuse them, and hit submit. It's literally just one page. A few days later, lo and behold, I get a notice saying that my medical records are incomplete and incorrect, and action is required on my behalf. I have to upload more info. Okay, will do. I just want to get this done. So, I submit the whole shot record and historical record and testing portion, about 30 pages. Oh, what do you know, deja vu. A few days later, I get an email saying, Dear Mr. Student, this is to inform you that additional action is required. Yeesh. So, I log into the medical portal because of course this can't be done through email. HIPAA, I know, I just like to complain because we're all human, sue me. And see that whoever reviewed the longer PDF I uploaded wasn't satisfied, saying my submission of proof of immunization was incomplete. Okay, fine. You know what? We'll play that game. I go dig through a closet and find the folder that has my outprocessing stuff from active duty. The thing is, when you get out, they give you a physical, hard copy of your medical records on CDs in addition to all the digital stuff, as well as what they send to the VA. My medical records were long enough to require 2 CDs. So, copy them all to my laptop and then upload them to the school's medical portal. All 745 pages of CD1 and 300 pages of CD2. Before I hit upload, I respond to the previous message explaining that this is the entirety of my service medical records, and if this isn't sufficient documentation, please let me know. This was in maybe late July, early August. Fast forward to mid-September, and today I received an email confirming the acknowledgement of my proof of vaccination status. Hooray! Solely out of curiosity, I decided to check the documents part. Lo and behold, it's the original one-pager I made. Now, to be fair, I have no idea if someone read through that whole thing or said, screw this guy, and went back to the first one, but either way, due to the 6+ week wait, I like to think some poor sap actually tried to dig through that. But hey, if you really want to waste my time, I'll return the favor. Bizarre I don't work here situation plus being way too high equals extreme confusion. So this happened Sunday before last. My husband Corey and I were invited by one of our best friends, April, on a trip to the city where she had attended college. It's still in our state, but it's about a 2-hour drive from the rural wasteland where we live. Specifically, April set up the trip so she could introduce my husband to a friend that she'd made at her job while living there. I had met Brent, not his real name, once before, and seeing how much Corey and Brent had in common, I had immediately agreed with her that the two of them would become instant friends if introduced. Sure enough, when we arrived on Saturday and we met up with Brent, the two guys hit it off famously and we had a great time. We checked into our hotel later and the four of us ended up staying up way too late that night playing video games and watching stuff. This is relevant because even with our late checkout, the next morning we overslept and ended up having to rush in order to check out on time. Due to the rush, I ended up just keeping the oversized shirt I'd worn to bed on and changed into my swim trunks. I'm a woman, but I typically prefer trunks over bikinis. Since I hadn't worn them the day before, the hotel pool had sadly been closed, and we were headed for a nature trail and then home anyway. Plus, they were the only shorts that I had packed and the best option in the 90-degree weather. With our plans, there was no reason for me to really care about my appearance. Keep in mind for later that my trunks were a bright blue and my big comfy shirt had characters from an anime on it. I knew I looked like a hobo who'd wandered into this quite fancy hotel lobby as we checked out. Still, I didn't care because we were leaving. Or so I thought. We said goodbye to Brent, who had to head to work, and I assumed we were heading out as well. Turns out that in the chaos of packing and getting our crap out on time, April hadn't been able to finish her breakfast, and this hotel lobby had a second story just for lounging guests. April plopped down in a comfy chair and pulled out her food, and Corey and I awkwardly sat on the couch next to her, feeling like we shouldn't be there after checkout, though I'd seen people at other hotels do this in the past. Now, before I continue, I need to describe the unique layout of this hotel. It's built on the slope of a large hill. The main lobby led out to the main parking lot at the bottom of the slope. The second floor lobby, which basically looked like a giant version of my grandma's living room, was level with the top of the hill, and it had another parking lot for the guests on the second floor. Still, to be able to get into the second story lobby, you would need a key card for your room, but apparently one of those doors was broken, which is also important to the encounter I would soon have. So, after April finished eating, both her and my husband head down to the main lobby to use the restrooms. This left me alone in this massive lounge because no employees were stationed on the second floor. Now's a good time to mention that I was out of my mind high on a couple of Delta 8 edibles. It was a complete accident on my part, I swear, and I had woken up at around 7 a.m. in a lot of pain. I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, so I had groggily gotten myself an edible to help ease me off and get back to sleep for a little longer. Well, again, due to the rushing, when we all got up 3 hours later, I forgot that I already had an edible since I didn't feel anything from the first gummy. I assumed that since I fell back asleep before it fully kicked in that my metabolism slowed down and the high was lying in wait for the worst possible timing. So deciding that I want to feel a relaxing but coherent high on the nature trail, I popped another gummy. The high didn't kick in until right before they headed to the restrooms, but evidently both edibles kicked in at once. I was on another plane of existence. And now, I finally arrive at the I don't work here encounter. I had started wandering around while waiting for April and Corey to return, and I found myself in front of a lectern podium, which had the schedule for the photography convention that we had briefly seen being held there the previous day. I'm extremely into photography, so I stood there reading the entire schedule to see what fun activities they had to do at the con. My back was facing the doors that only guests are supposed to have access to, and it was dead silent. Then, suddenly, 2 loud bangs! scared the living heck out of my insanely high brain, and I jumped around to see an older yet surprisingly fit looking man, probably in his 50s, yanking on the handle for each of the locked doors. There were 4 doors in total. No one had come through this second-story lobby since we'd been there either, so his sudden appearance unnerved my toasted brain even more. I had instinctually started to step towards the door to help him in, but I paused as I realized that he probably wasn't a guest if he was just aggressively yanking on the locked doors. I watched as this man cursed at each door while pulling the handles multiple times, unsure of what to do, and still scared because I was way too high to be dealing with someone I didn't know by myself. The man went to yank the final door handle as violently as he had the other 3, only for it to open unexpectedly, and it almost hit him in the face from the force of the pull. I was now panicking because this man was obviously very agitated, and I was still the only person in the room that he had possibly just broken the door of to get into. I did the only thing I could think of to avoid him, and I turned back to the podium, this time only pretending to read the convention schedule. Irrational fear that he might be a killer also crossed my mind, so I just kept thinking, please walk past me, go downstairs, and check in like a normal person. Ignore me, please! It felt like an eternity passed, and I hadn't even heard him coming up behind me, so when his loud broke the silence, I jumped yet again and spun around. This guy was maybe 4 feet away from me, possibly closer, and he was close enough that I could smell his sweat. Ugh. His expression was disconcerting as heck, and he stared wide-eyed at me. He looked confused, angry, excited, and basically just insane, all at once. I had no idea what he was expecting me to do. Is he mad I didn't open a door for him? I thought to myself. When I said nothing, that's when crap got weird. He started to kind of blubber at me loudly while looking me up and down. Nothing coming from his mouth could be comprehended as words. The only thing that I was able to pick up on was that he sounded really embarrassed or confused. He wasn't speaking another language, I'm almost positive of that. I just can't do it justice in writing, but it sounded like a string of ta-ta sounds that you'd hear in a comedy sketch making fun of really fancy rich Britishmen. You know, like holding wine glasses and chortling with one another in a deep babbling way. Several seconds passed with him making these deep blubbering sounds, and he pointed at me, and then the podium, and then the hallway to the hotel rooms. My brain finally rebooted and started processing enough to squeak out the words. I don't work. The man cut me off with one curt, extra loud babble, and I shrunk back a little as he stared at me silently for a couple of seconds after. I'm convinced at this point that he may have had a mental disability of some sort and isn't able to speak clearly, or he's possibly having tics. I wanted to help him, but he was absolutely terrifying me. I wanted to tell him that he just needs to head down the stairs to the main lobby, but his stare felt like it was literally penetrating my soul. I despise being that high, especially in public, and this was sending me spiraling. Then, he suddenly says, very, very quietly, okay, so, His sudden, complete change in tone and pitch, and the fact that he just spoke so clearly, made me question reality in that moment. I stood there, still not knowing what else to say, so I end up repeating, sorry, I don't work here, while gesturing to the stairs. This causes him to quickly move towards the glass doors that separate the top of the stairs and the lobby, and his face is burning dark crimson. I can't tell if he's angry or embarrassed or what, so I just wait for him to either go through the doors down to the main lobby or say something else. In a very clear voice, but said very quickly, with what I could now tell was obvious embarrassment, he repeats, "You don't work here." He stated it. There was no question in his voice, then continued, "I go down here, check-in's down there." I nod. Without another word, he furiously jerks the stairwell door open, just like he had with the guest entrance door, and practically ran down the stairs. All I could do was stand there, looking down at the main lobby desk, thinking over and over again, what the heck just happened? I see him approach the desk in record time, and I just continued to watch him in a confused daze until I assume an employee who I couldn't see from my angle greeted him. I could see his mouth moving, and then he turned to the stairwell, pointing up. We made eye contact for a split second before I snapped out of it and quickly shuffled back to the sofa where all of our bags were. About a minute passes, and I'm silently begging for Corey and April to get back soon. It felt like an hour had passed since they had gone down to the bathrooms, but I checked my phone and saw that the whole encounter with the bizarre man had only lasted about 5 minutes. Another minute passes, and suddenly the stairwell door opens. I look up, hoping to see my husband or best friend, but instead, I lock eyes, again, with none other than the blubbering man. He holds my stare for just a moment with a hard glare, face still red, then turns his head away from me and swiftly walks back out of the door he somehow got into from outside. Of course, like the stone dummy I clearly was at the time, I ended up watching him leave without realizing I was doing it. He glanced back one more time while passing through the doorway, saw me staring like a complete idiot, but instead of glaring now, he just looks embarrassed again. He mutters, "Sorry," so quietly that I'm still wondering if I imagined it or not, then practically ran out to his car. Only seconds after this guy leaves, Corey and April get back upstairs, laughing about something until they see my face. Corey immediately asks me what's wrong, and I do my best to explain that I had the weirdest "I don't work here" situation happen while they were gone. But most of what I'm describing makes no sense to them either. Even now, I have no clue what was going on with that guy exactly. Dude, if you see my post, I'm sorry if in my blazed and confused state of mind I embarrassed you. But really, man, I have no idea how you even began to think I worked there, considering how trashy I looked that day. My best guess is that this man was having a very bad or stressful day and or has really bad social anxiety, which I completely empathize with. I want to add that if he does have a mental disability, I'm not shaming or making fun of him in any way. He wasn't exactly rude or anything, aside from the glaring. It was just incredibly unsettling and bizarre as heck, especially due to how high I was. I hope he's well. Unless he really is some type of criminal, that is. Psycho Karen neighbor destroys property and files a false police report with an update. Click the video on your screen to find out what happens to Karen, and I'll see you there.